Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time, it is a rant on Disney's rebranding of 20th Century Fox. And I know there's going to be a lot of people that are like, what's the big deal? I don't understand. It's just a logo and so on and so forth. And to those people, teach their own. I'm just going to say it as politely as I possibly can. And I'm going to do my best to be respectful here and to provide some context that I think is missing when it comes to the general meh, who cares reaction I seem to get from social media and from other people in threads and so on and so forth when in regards to this particular rebranding. So Disney has decided that they are going to take the Fox out of 20th Century Fox. It's going to be rebranded as 20th Century Studios, and they are also doing the same with Fox Searchlight and turning it to just Searchlight Pictures. And I get why some people are like, it's not that big of a deal, it's just a logo, it's just a name. But to me, it's more than that. It's a legacy. And the legacy is still there, it's still intact. I'm not trying to make the argument that Disney rebranding 20th Century Fox means that the past has died, but it's tarnished a little bit. And in a way that is just, in my opinion, completely unnecessary. So, with Fox, which is kind of interesting, is that this is a studio that became known as 20th Century Fox because of a merger in 1935. There was a studio called Fox Pictures that was struggling financially and that started in 1915. And that studio ultimately was merged with another studio and it became 20th Century Fox. The studio that Joseph Schenck and Daryl F. Zanuck became known for, because it was known as Fox was known as the company that they were running was 20th Century Pictures, and the company that the other owner, which was I believe it was Spiros Skouras, which it might be a familiar name to you because there was a studio at one point called Skouras Pictures or Skouras Films. And by the way, Fox was actually known as Fox Films, not Fox Pictures. My bad. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. But anyway, the merger happened between 20th Century Pictures and Fox Films in 1935, and it became 20th Century Fox. And the rest is history. 20th Century Fox is or was one of the longest running film studios in Hollywood. It was around when Disney first started, when Walt Disney first released his first film, his first feature film. Fox was competing with Disney for decades. And it is sort of an unwritten rule in Hollywood that if a competing studio, a rival studio, or a corporation purchases the rights to or the studio itself, that they don't rebrand the studio. They don't change the name of the studio. The studio remains the same. I mean, even Sony, when they bought Columbia Pictures, they didn't get rid of Columbia Pictures. They didn't jettison the entire studio. They rebranded, but Columbia was still a part of the whole rebranding. It was Sony Columbia. It was Columbia Pictures still had their own logo. So even Sony didn't do something like this. And you would think if anyone would do something like that, it would be Sony. Because, they seem to be just a king of bad decisions lately. And I get it. 20th Century Fox as a studio had been struggling, which is interesting considering that that's really the history of the studio for a good chunk of its existence. But It was struggling again, and there were some issues, and so on and so forth. Disney comes in with the monopoly money, buys the studio, and says, fuck the unwritten rule, fuck all of that, fuck tradition, and we're gonna fuck the Fox right out of 20th Century Fox because we can. Because we're Disney. And we own basically Hollywood now. So what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And to me, that just sets a horrible precedent going forward. Because now this rule is broken. I mean, we're talking a rule that has been in effect for decades. I mean, this is the context I'm talking about. Even when a studio like United Artists, that had its serious financial struggles with the box office bomb that was Heaven's Gate, the studio that the corporation that came in and helped it out, they didn't completely rename the studio. They didn't call it anything different. When MGM went with their own struggles and Sony bought MGM, they didn't decide to call it Lion Pictures. So I mean, it's one of those things that is just completely unprecedented in the history of Hollywood and of cinema, that a studio that has such a long-lasting legacy with this particular brand would just be defaced in such a way, just nonchalantly, you know. We're just going to take the Fox out of the name. And I get it. Some people are going to say, well, it started out as 20th Century Pictures, but it hasn't been known as 20th Century Pictures for the majority of its time as a studio. If you're going to try to make arguments like this, I'm just going to give you some advice. Do some extra research other than the little bit that you see or you've heard from a friend of yours. Like, go a little bit deeper, because there's so many arguments I see online, especially when it comes to things like this, that lack so much context that you would easily get if you just decided to do a little bit more extra research. I mean, why wouldn't you want to? Why would you refuse to do that? Because all it does is strengthen your argument. And if that's what you're trying to do, is trying to make an argument that's compelling, then I would think you would want to do that. I mean, because I've been seeing this argument from people. It's not that big of a deal either because it was 20th Century Pictures at one point in time. Yeah, how long ago was that? Also, on all the print ads, the posters, the TV spots, the trailers, and the logo before the movie came out for the past, I don't mean for the movie came on the screen, sorry. All of those, all of that branding was 20th Century Fox for at least 40 years, if not longer than that. So this idea that, oh, it's been 20th Century Pictures before, it's something that's been that happened so long ago that it's, in my opinion, it isn't really that viable of an argument to make, because it's such an outdated, crusty, old argument that, compared to the decades of history of this studio being known by the masses as 20th Century Fox, it's just a really flimsy argument to make. I mean, it's so easy to shoot holes through it. And there's another argument that I keep seeing, which makes me scratch and shake my head even more and even harder, that, oh, well, it's being rebranded and the Fox is being taken out of the name because of Rupert Murdoch and his Fox Corporation, because he's toxic and he's done more to ruin the name of Fox than Disney is by taking the Fox out of 20th Century Fox. And yes, Rupert Murdoch is a toxic guy, but to me personally, taking Fox out of a iconic, legendary studio is letting him win. It's letting him spread his toxic fumes even further than before. So if you're in the boat of, I don't like Rupert Murdoch and he's done so much damage to the Fox brand, by just giving Disney a pass for erasing Fox from the 20th Century Fox studio, you're letting him win. You're letting him lord over and now hold on to the name that he didn't really work for, didn't really have possession of for nearly as long as the folks behind 20th Century Fox did. The original studio heads and the studio heads that came after them. So, to me, that's also an incredibly weak argument to make in favor of this rebranding. Oh, well, Fox Corporation, they ruined the brand already. They didn't ruin it. And I hear another thing. Because okay, I'm gonna get to this other part soon enough, but I want to go back to that. I want to give my thoughts on the ruining of the Fox brand because of Rupert Murdoch and Fox News and all of that. I don't personally feel that they ruined the brand because the 20th Century Fox brand was always separate from Rupert Murdoch's Fox brand. I can't think of a single person that I know of that was unable to separate the two. And it's something that had been going on for what, 20, 30 years? Like, 20th Century Fox and Fox News and Rupert Murdoch's whole empire had been running side by side amongst each other and alongside one another for years. And nobody was confused. Nobody said anything. Nobody was like 20th Century Fox is damaged as a brand because of Fox News. Nobody fucking said any of that shit. And for some reason, now, as soon as Disney has decided to take the Fox out of 20th Century Fox, you have people making this argument that, oh, well, people might get confused between the two. Or the brand was damaged by Fox News and Rupert Murdoch. And I'm just like, since when? Since when was this ever the fucking case? Also, with the confusing thing, since when was anyone confused? I'm confused by the idea that's being posited that anybody in the world was ever confused with Fox News or Rupert Murdoch's company being the same company that was running or was involved with 20th Century Fox. That confuses me. That's what's confusing. Is this theory that's just popped up. It's just popped in there out of nowhere. Pulled out of people's asses to give Disney a bunch of excuses for rebranding a studio. To me, this reeks of Disney just using their monopoly money to not only buy Fox, but to get the last laugh. To get over on 20th Century Fox, like 20th Century Fox is WCW or TNA, and Bob Iger is Vince McMahon in WWE. It just reeks of that kind of thing where it's all like, well, we'll show you, Fox. You're nothing. We're going to take that Fox out of your name and we're going to put it on our mantelpiece. Hey, Sting, you're nothing. And neither is the NWO, neither is your NWO. We're going to have Triple H go over you at WrestleMania. So it's just one of those things that's like, it just feels so shady to me. It just feels so shitty, and it's such a hollow victory for Disney. Like, what do they gain? That's another thing. To me, this is a completely and utterly pointless rebranding on Disney's part. What does Disney gain by rebranding 20th Century Fox in such a fashion? By taking such an iconic name, brand name that almost literally anybody knows of, and changing it. Like, what do they gain? If they show the same intro with the same searchlight and everything and the same music, but there's no Fox, that's going to be even more infuriating to me, because it's just going to emphasize how pointless this rebranding was. Like, what was even the point of it then? Just so you could do it? It was just an example. It was just a way for you to show power, to show, yep, we did that. We can do that. We broke that unwritten rule in Hollywood because fuck it, we're Disney, and you can't do shit about it. You're not. What are you gonna do? The mouse has gotten too big for the house now. The mouse is on steroids. The mouse has gotten irradiated with gamma rays. The mouse is the size of fucking Godzilla and King Kong combined. You ain't gonna fucking stop this mouse. You're just gonna have to bow down to the mouse and hope you don't get destroyed or annihilated by its nuclear breath. That's the point we're at right now. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is just another thing to add to a long list of infractions, in my opinion, on Disney's part. Ever since Bob Iger started his shopping spree of buying every IP and studio that he could afford. I mean, look at how they're handling Scott Derrickson with Doctor Strange 2. Oh, you want to go a different direction creatively? I can't even say. I'm so pissed off. I can't even say words straight. You want to go a different direction creatively, Scott Derrickson? We don't like that. Nope. I don't think so. We're not going to do that. And if we can't come to an agreement, then you might as well leave. And that's exactly what Scott Derrickson did. So they're going to find another person to replace him. And there seems to be a lot of insulation happening in Disney too. Like you're hearing rumors about Taika Waititi doing a Star Wars series. You can't get any outside people? It seems like it's like a boys club. It's a boys club at Disney right now of just MCU filmmakers. You directed something in the MCU? All right, you can do some Star Wars shows. Oh, did you do something for us in the MCU? Okay, you could do this. Oh, did you do something for us at the studio? Okay, you can do this. Like it seems like most, if not every single project that they're behind, for the most part right now, is all insulated hires. It's all the same writers, the same directors, the same people, and you wonder why I'm starting to think it's gotten a little bit stale, because it's the same old ingredients, and it's the same chefs and the same cooks in the kitchen. And then you got the whole stuff with the rule, the law that prevents film studios from owning movie theaters gets repealed or gets tossed out, Disney's probably going to be one of the first studios in line to buy up a ton of theater chains and make them a theater monopoly, because that's definitely right up their alley. I can't believe there are people out there who say with a straight face that Disney is not a monopoly. It's just something that just completely blows my mind to this day. I mean, they're already actively interested in buying theaters. And then you have the whole thing with them taking films out of theaters, not allowing smaller theater chains or even big theater chains to play legacy films in the theater anymore. They're throwing them in the vault, acting like they've owned the rights to them for years. As soon as Disney gets the rights to Fox titles, they're just like, fuck you. Theater chains, you ain't getting shit. Oh, but Rocky Horror Picture Show, we're not dumb enough to piss off those fans. You can still get the rights to show those. But anyone else, you want to show any other Fox titles? You want to show Die Hard, Alien, Aliens? Fuck you. You ain't getting shit. You're going to have to wait till we decide to allow some theater chain to show them. Probably going to be our own theater chain to show the Fox titles for a limited run, and you're going to have to pay out the ass to see them. Oh, you want to see films like True Lies or Blu-ray, or The Abyss on Blu-ray? See, I'm just discombobulated. This is what happens, folks, when I get heated. Like, my brain cells start exploding, and they start firing in weird ways. So forgive me. But this is also live. So that's another thing that you have to keep in mind. But anyway, getting back getting back on track here. I mean, yeah, you want those True Lies Blu-rays or a 4K remaster of The Abyss? We're not going to give you that because we don't give a fuck about physical media. If you're lucky, you get to see it on Disney Plus or Hulu and pay a good chunk of change to see it. But we're not going to give you a disc. Discs? Physical media? What is this, the 80s? What do you want us to press laser discs now? So I mean, really, it's just this whole rebranding of Fox is just more shit on top of an already gigantic pile of shit to me when it comes to Disney and their decisions as of late. Um, Iger is with more and more of his decisions is just making me think that Eisner wasn't nearly as bad. Eisner had his own problems, but Eisner wasn't such a megalomaniac. I mean, it's one of those things. Is like Eisner, he definitely had an ego, but when he had his main confidant at his side, Frank Wells, he was actually a quite good head of the company. And I think when Frank Wells passed away, that's really the straw that broke Disney's back in that instance. And then Iger comes in and he just turns Disney into this soulless corporate behemoth. And before, it was trying to branch out and do these things under Iger, but it was doing it in a way, despite things like Disneyland Paris and other failures, there still felt like there was more creativity and there were more risks involved. Iger is the king of playing it safe, and rebranding Disney's new studio, 20th Century Fox, to just 20th Century Studio. That really just that falls right in line with Iger's thinking. His MO of playing it safe and just not trying to rock the boat. But at the same time, it kind of doesn't, because wouldn't you think the most play it safe move here would be just to keep the name, a legendary iconic name that has been a part of Hollywood history for decades, since the 30s? You would think that they would just keep that, but it's just like I said, it's a hollow victory. It's a way for Disney to thumb its nose at Fox, to flip the middle finger and laugh in its face. And it also opens the door for other studios and other corporations, if they wind up buying studios, to actively consider doing the same. They might buy Sony and they might just rebrand it entirely. Take the Sony out of Sony. And then what? And I'm sure there's a lot of people who probably wouldn't care because, well, the company that probably would wind up buying Sony is Disney. And that's a scary proposition if you ask me. Disney already has way too much power, way too much authority in Hollywood. I mean, look at the numbers for the highest grossing films from last year, 2019. Disney dominated that tally. They dominated that list. If they own another studio and the rights to other properties and profitable franchises, then they're going to dominate that list even more. I think a lot of people don't really understand the gravity and the weight of the situation. They don't understand how damaging it potentially is for Disney to own 20th Century Fox right now. I mean, even a studio like, say what you want about Comcast, but they wouldn't have never rebranded this studio. They would have kept the name and probably would have kept the studio. Maybe might have closed a few portions of it, but they would have just kind of left it alone and let it do its own thing. They wouldn't have tried to change it, to remold it to their own image. They didn't do that with Universal. They didn't do that with NBC. So I doubt that they would do the same with 20th Century Fox if they were the ones that got the rights. I know a lot of people hate Comcast, and I get it, but you know what? In this instance, they were the better option, and I still feel that way because they would not have rebranded the studio like this. It just would not have happened, and they would have taken more risks with the kind of projects and the kind of films that they decided to greenlight and decided to make. I mean, we're talking about a studio that takes risks with Blumhouse, an offshoot of a company that Disney wouldn't even dare try to do. Not even in a million years. They won't even let Scott Derrickson make a scary Doctor Strange sequel. So, that's a whole other topic in itself. But anyway, yeah, this just really lit a fire under me, so to speak, and I just really felt like it was a video that I not only really wanted to make, but it's a video that I thought was something that I feel that people should at least have the opportunity to see. I'm not trying to make this video and say that you're wrong and I'm right, and if it comes across that way, I apologize. That's not my intention at all. I welcome your opinion. If you think it's not that big of a deal, that's fine. But I encourage you, I strongly encourage you, and really hope that you do a little bit extra research on your own free time and find the context for the situation here, and to really see all sides of it, and to look at the history and to see how unprecedented this rebranding is and what it potentially means going forward. But anyway, thank you for watching my video, and as always, I will see you later. See ya.